Hello, and welcome to this edition of Iran International's special interviews. I am your host, Arash Alai, and my guest today is the former Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett. He told us he had a meeting with the Biden administration right before this interview, where he was reassured that the United States will not tolerate a nuclear Iran. We also talked about the Islamic Republic of Iran, Israel proxy wars, the women-led revolution in Iran, and what he called the historic debt that Israel has had to the Iranian people since Cyrus the Great liberated the Jews. Without further ado, let's tune into this edition of our special interview. Thank you so much for joining us today. Iran and Israel are sworn enemies. Ayatollah Khamenei wants Israel to be wiped off the map of the world. Some analysts say that Iran is no match for Israel militarily. Some analysts say Iran is stronger. Where do you stand on that debate?
Well, I'd like to open with the privilege to have this interview and to be able to talk to the Iranian people. I have to say, as a former Prime Minister of Israel, that Israelis very much respect Iran and the Iranian people, and we have a heritage that goes back thousands of years. And in fact, we, the Jewish people, have a historic debt to the Persian people because King Cyrus, just about 2,500 years ago, he declared and allowed Jews to return to our homeland. So it's very unfortunate that the Islamic Republic sort of hijacked this wonderful country of Iran and has formed a war with us. Israel is very strong. Israel is considered a superpower in technology. That's why we're one of the leaders in the world of missile technology and anti-missile technology. And across the world, everyone is trying to purchase our Iron Dome and other technologies. So, I don't want to get into a race of who's stronger. All I can say is Israel is incredibly strong and we're able to defend ourselves and defeat any of our enemies and indeed all of our enemies combined.
But if I may follow up on that, there's recently been atrocities near the Israeli border, rockets fired by Hezbollah and Hamas, the last of which was during Passover, 34 missiles shot into Israeli soil with very little to no response from the Israeli government. How do you think the situation is unfolding right now between Israel, Hamas, and Hezbollah?
Well, we don't need to react based on what our enemies want to time us. We will react at the time that's convenient for us. All I would say is that Nasrallah said a few years ago that had he known what Israel's response would have been during the second Lebanon war, he never would have started it. So I think he regrets the second Lebanon war, and I certainly don't think that he would want to bring upon Lebanon and indeed the Lebanese the destruction of a potential third war.
So do you think they're testing Israel right now by firing 34 missiles into?
I think sometimes there are political needs on the other side to show I'm tough because they look at Israel. Lebanon is a failed state because of Hezbollah. The Islamic Republic of Iran that exports, you know what its biggest export is? Failed states. That regime, every state it touches Lebanon, Lebanon fails. It touches Syria, Syria fails. It touches Yemen, Yemen fails. And they look at Israel, which is a wildly successful country with a powerful economy, almost no unemployment. People enjoy a very high quality of life. We have an abundance of water, of energy, of food, of travel. And, they look at this and I guess there's a bit of envy. So they shoot a rocket here and a rocket there. Israel is strong and we know how to respond when we decide to respond.
Analysts say Hezbollah has if not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of missiles acquired by Iranians. Now they're building their own facilities to make missiles and drones in their territory. Do you believe that all these missiles, that all these capabilities that the Islamic Republic is providing to Hamas and Hezbollah has Israel surrounded?
No, I think certainly it's not pleasant. It's not a good development. I think, generally speaking, the Islamic Republic is making a big mistake towards its own people that it invests tens of billions of dollars every year in terror of Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and others instead of in its own people. So it invests its money in rockets instead of water, clean water for its people, in terror instead of clean air for its people. And the people of Iran suffer for this. That's a big mistake. Israel is strong. We have very powerful air defenses, but more important, we have what is considered perhaps one of the strongest air forces in the world with the most advanced weaponry, and we can get anywhere and hit any place that we need. So I wouldn't recommend anyone to shoot those rockets at Israel.
Um, we're going to talk about the technologies that Israel has in terms of water desalination and climate change technologies. But going back to the missiles, all these technologies that the Islamic Republic is providing to Hezbollah, how much does it actually cost? How much is this proxy war costing the Iranian people?
I would say tens of billions of dollars a year. So it has a meaningful impact on the quality of life of Iranians. And Iranians are unfortunately suffering lack of clean water, lack of clean air, very high inflation rates, a devaluation of its currency because a lot of the money is funneled towards terror. Also because the Islamic Republic is corrupt. It's a very corrupt regime. And, I see the intelligence. It's ridiculous, the amount of money and the way these ayatollahs, they spoil their own children and their own families enjoy a very high quality of life. I see it all in the intelligence information, while your typical Iranians suffer. That's wrong, that's unfair. I would say that the Islamic Republic reminds me a lot of the Soviet Union in the 80s, in the 1980s, just a few years before it imploded, because you see the same type of corruption. You see a very old leadership that is totally disconnected to the public. You see a vibrant public who wants freedom. And I have to say, the whole world is inspired by the courage of the young Iranian men and women that are out fighting for their freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and it's beautiful. So I'm fairly confident that sooner or later this regime will not sustain itself and will be changed by hopefully a democracy.
If I may follow up on the amount of money, because we get that question a lot from Iranian people. How much money is being spent on Hezbollah? How much money, Iranian people's money, is spent in Syria, in Yemen? Can you give us more statistics?
So if I take all of the operations, meaning what they do in Lebanon, what they do in Yemen, what they do in Syria, what they do around the world, and the salaries of the Quds forces, which are the external export of the revolution, we're talking about a ballpark of 20 to 30 billion dollars a year. This could clean water for all Iranians. I want to explain something. We in Israel also live in a tiny country that lacks water. It always did. There was always a lack of water. But our leadership, for the past several decades, we developed systems that generate water. So now we have more water than we consume, that we manufacture, and we are providing our neighbors, including Jordan, with an abundance of water. So water should be a basic right of every person. And that's what a country who cares about its people, that's what it looks like. Unfortunately, the Islamic Republic simply does not care about its people.
That's also a form of soft power, right? You have water to provide to other countries. You're giving them water instead of weapons
Yes.
or war. The idea of democracy in Iran, when you talked about the recent uprising in Iran, the women-led uprising in Iran, as you mentioned, many of these kids who are being brutally shot in Iran by the security forces are young people, 16-year-old, 15-year-old, they're students. You talked about the aspirations of Iranian people for democracy, for freedom. How do you compare that to aspirations of younger generation in your own country?
You know, I can tell you with my own children. I've got four children, the age of 17, 15, 13, and 10. These are young boys and girls. They have dreams. They pursue their dreams. They are free to roam social media, free to meet and say whatever they want, wherever they want. No one will ever stop them on the street and tell them what to do, what to wear, and what not to wear. They can eat what they want. It's just a beautiful country. And I think what my children get is what every child in Iran should have, the ability to pursue happiness and pursue their dreams.
On the other hand, you have a minority in your country who's against all of these freedoms. There are parts in Israeli society who object to women being free or the type of Western civilizations, coming from Western Europe. But you live in harmony in Israel.
Well, look, I don't want to present Israel as a perfect country. We're a democracy. We're debating. We argue a lot. Democracies are not perfect. I don't want to send a wrong message. I want to be honest. And democracies are flawed. And we have our own problems. There's a degree of demonstrations against the government, but not one person was killed. And that's how a democracy works. In Israel, the overwhelming majority of Israelis will ensure that Israel will always remain a free, strong democracy.
But there is a part, again, to
Tiny,
follow up.
a tiny, negligible
There are
part.
newspapers who wouldn't put the pictures of women. We have heard about stories.
But you know
about,
what? Any Israeli can decide, do I want to buy that newspaper or not? And no one has to buy that newspaper. And anyone who wants to show any man or woman openly can do that freely in Israel.
Let's move on to the differences of opinion between the state of Israel and the United States when it comes to Iranian nuclear program. When you met President Biden in 2021, you said that your country, Israel, is against a pursuit of another nuclear deal or reinstating JCPOA. Has your position changed?
No, it hasn't. The value of the JCPOA has sort of eroded, and it has very little value now because most of the critical provisions are fading out. Iran's regime, the Islamic Republic regime, for decades has been just pouring tens and tens of billions of dollars into this pursuit of weapons that would ultimately turn the whole Middle East into a nuclear weaponized area that would risk and endanger everyone in the Middle East, which is why we think this is a bad idea, and ultimately it would go to terror. So there is not much daylight between us and the United States. Both agree that the Islamic Republic should not acquire nuclear weapons. Both America and Israel are fully coordinated on preventing the Islamic Republic from acquiring nuclear weapons.
Well, at least part of the US government are still pursuing some sort of a nuclear deal with Iran. I talked to at least 4 different Democratic senators, Senator Carper, Senator Cardin, Senator Murphy. They all told me they still support renegotiating some sort of a nuclear deal with Iran.
By the way, I don't oppose per se a nuclear deal. A deal that would stem and block the regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons in return for benefits would make sense. It's about the details, because we don't want to hurt the people of Iran. Quite the contrary. We just need to ensure that the deal is a good deal and the framework is effective in preventing those ayatollahs from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
President Biden thought it's good enough to pursue it. President Trump thought it's a bad deal. Where do you stand?
Well, it changes. It depends on time. The current deal as it stands has already lost most of its fervor, most of its effect. So there's no point returning to that, and I think America gets that. So clearly, if there were a deal, it would need to be a revamped deal.
William Burns, the CIA director, was speaking to U.S. Congress a couple of weeks ago, and he said he still thinks the Iranian regime has not decided. They don't have the intention to build the bomb. So what is important for Israel? Iran's intention or their technical capability? Because they can produce a bomb as soon as they want, don't they?
Not really. It's not that simple to produce a bomb. We don't want them to acquire a nuclear bomb, and we don't want to depend on the intentions that are in the head of one person, Khamenei. So therefore, we don't want that capability to exist at the Islamic Republic.
Axios recently reports that the U.S. administration has been floating around the idea of a maybe partial nuclear deal with Iran. Do you support that idea?
It depends on the parameters. It depends. Does it actually stop the Islamic Republic from achieving those nuclear weapons? And what does the Islamic Republic get in return? I would say that we don't want Iran's regime to acquire that, because that would prolong the terrorist nature of the Islamic Republic.
But they have some components of the nuclear bomb. They have
a degree of enriched uranium.
Yes. Does that concern you?
Oh, yeah, it does. But still, it's a fairly long way till you acquire a nuclear weapon.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe they can put it in a missile and they can shoot it. Maybe they don't have the missile capability, but they can make a dirty bomb.
But yeah, there are a few options. I won't get into all the technicalities. I would say that according to foreign sources, Israel has not been tolerating Iran's terror activities. And again, according to foreign sources, some very bad people that belong to the regime have been paying a significant price in Tehran center for messing around with regional terror.
So them having 84% enriched uranium, is it going to make them more dangerous?
If they are allowed to pursue that, yes.
But they're already there, Prime Minister.
Well, right now, my best understanding, they are back to 60% under a degree of supervision. But we have to stay tight on it.
You told Fox News last week that the idea of the Islamic Republic having a nuclear bomb is like giving Osama bin Laden a nuclear bomb. Khamenei and Osama bin Laden share a lot of their viewpoints about the world, especially about the West, about women, and especially about Israel. Now that Khamenei has reached the level of, as you said, 60% enriched uranium, do you think the United States should be concerned?
Yes, and the United States is concerned. Look, we're speaking in Washington, D.C. I don't speak on behalf of America, but I can say after a bunch of meetings with the relevant folks that America has very little tolerance for this progress on the nuclear development, and so does the state of Israel. Israel will not accept and will not allow the Islamic Republic to go nuclear.
Can you tell us a little bit about the sources, the people that you talked to? Was it at the White House, the State Department, the Biden administration?
I don't want to share that information.
Is it very recent? You look very confident.
It's from a few hours ago.
Okay. And you have from what you've heard, it has made you confident enough to believe that the United States is not going to tolerate an Iran with a nuclear bomb. Is that correct?
Yes.
There are concerns about the Biden administration's treatment of the IRGC. Okay, there's been a lot of conversation about delisting the IRGC from the State Department terrorist list, and then the Biden administration they said they won't do that. Another conversation about enlisting IRGC as a terrorist organization in Europe, but according to European media, at least in one case, in case of Britain, it seems that the Biden administration has been pushing them not to enlist IRGC as a terrorist group. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can tell you what I know. President Biden himself committed to me directly when I was prime minister just a few months ago that he would keep the IRGC on the terror list uh, permanently because the IRGC is the world's largest terror group. So you better keep it on the terror list. And I see across the world that more and more countries are going down that route, be it Australia, the UK, etc. It's a terror group. That's what they do. That's all they do.
Listening to at least the Iranians that I talked to after the uprising here in Washington D.C., some of them in Europe, this is one of the requests of Iranian people when they're demonstrating on behalf of the Iranian people is that they want IRGC to be enlisted, and yet we
Because
still
the
don't.
IRGC is killing Iranians. Of course they want it. The IRGC, not only is it a huge terror group, it's also one of the biggest violators of human rights on earth. It's killing its own people. This is crazy. Imagine in America if you had its own armed forces killing Americans. That would be crazy. So the whole world sees through what's going on in Iran. The whole world sees that this corrupt and incompetent regime is murdering its own people. And that is unacceptable. And the world cares about the Iranian people.
One question that I've been getting, and maybe you can help us understand, is that yes, Europe is moving towards putting IRGC on the terror list. Some say only because Iran is providing drones to Russians, and now Europeans feel threatened. In other words, they say Iranian people are not a priority for Europeans to enlist IRGC. Do you agree with that assessment?
Not fully. I do agree that the Islamic Republic's decision to provide Russia with drones and UAVs certainly has not increased its popularity in the West. But the West does care. Could it care more? Yes. I can say on behalf of my country that the State of Israel, which is a major power in the Middle East, cares about that.
How much leverage Israel has over European Union? Where does Israel stand in that conversation? Delisting or enlisting IRGC as a
Well, I mean,
terrorist group?
clearly the IRGC needs to be called for what it is, a huge terror organization. And we are very vocal about it. And I believe that we have some sway on governments around the world.
The recent batch of leaks from Pentagon, I'm sure you've heard that story in the United States, are mentioning that at parts, the DoD, the Department of Defense, is considering 4 scenarios to get Israel involved to provide weaponry to Ukraine, one of which is to help Israel against the Iranian threat. Do you think that would unfold?
Look, I don't want to refer to the specifics of any sort of leak. Israel has been providing tremendous support to Ukraine. We were the first country, I was, as prime minister, the first country on earth to set up a field hospital in Ukraine during the war. We are providing tremendous humanitarian assistance, and now there's dialogue to potentially increase the dimensions of assistance, but this is up to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Let's move on to the recent historic trip of Prince Reza Pahlavi to Israel. He's actually, as we're recording this show, he is in Israel right now. What do you think, what do you make of this trip to Israel, first of all?
Well, the prince has been traveling many places around the world, and he's well respected. And we certainly in Israel view him and the Iranian people as a friend. And we believe that the Iranian people should be able to decide and choose their own leadership, be it who it may.
But when he traveled to Israel, he said that one of the main reasons that he traveled to Israel is to tell the Israeli people that the Islamic Republic does not represent the Iranian people. Do you think he's succeeded in conveying that message?
Absolutely. He's received a very respected visit to Israel. And we in Israel fully understand the distinction between the Islamic Republic, which is a terrible regime, perhaps one of the worst regimes on earth, versus the Iranian people, which are a wonderful people. And we certainly are looking forward one day, not far away, to resume the relationship.
Um, let's move on to the relationship, cultural relationship between the Israeli people and Iranian people, especially in the last decade, since the advent of social media. We've seen a lot of campaigns. The Israelis trying to reach out to Iranians and vice versa. And one of the recent projects that has succeeded in Iran to a level that has not happened before is the entertainment show series called Tehran, which is on Apple TV here in the United States, and people can bootleg, download it from anywhere around the world. What do you think about projects such as Tehran? Why do you think these projects succeed among the Iranian populace?
Well, I guess because they're authentic. They don't present propaganda like the Islamic Republic regime does internally. We don't try to portray this perfect paradise on earth. No, Israel's a great country, but we've got our own debates, our own flaws, our own crises, and that's okay. That's what a democracy is about. We're not like the Soviet type propaganda or the Islamic Republic propaganda. I would also say one more thing. In Israel, we have a very big community of Jewish Iranians who have been wildly successful. Israel's perhaps most dominant singer, she is from Iran. The commander of Israel's military, one of the former commanders, and defense minister of Israel, Mofaz, was born in Tehran. So we have really a deep-rooted relationship with the Iranian people, the Farsi language, and we should be living in peace. So once we can hopefully see a democracy evolve in Iran, and the Iranian people choose their own leadership, and that's theirs to choose, I think we could look at a whole new era in the Israeli-Iranian relationship.
Two more main questions that I have. One, circling back to the technologies about climate change technologies, water desalination, the techniques that Israel has developed, the universities in Israel have developed to fight climate change or problems like drought or deforestation. And then you compare that to Iran and what's happening in terms of the mismanagement of the climate. Do you see a future where Israel would be able to help the Iranian people in their challenges, environmental challenges?
Oh, absolutely. I think Israel was faced with a very tough challenge. We're also a country with a desert, and we lacked water always. Now we have an abundance of water, an abundance of clean air. There's a lot we can learn from the Iranian people and a lot that we can share with the Iranian people. This is all technology that we would be happy to share and love to share with the Iranian people the moment it would be possible.
A lot of people are asking when, because the Abraham Accords have brought Arabs and Israelis together. And now you travel to Dubai. I was in Dubai last year, and there were a lot of tourists from Israel.
Yeah.
And people in Iran are asking, would that ever happen?
I believe that certainly in our lifetime, we're going to see that. I know that the regime right now, the Islamic Republic regime, its days are numbered. It's old, irrelevant, disconnected leadership that doesn't care about its people, resembles one-to-one the Soviet leadership in the 1980s, old, ideologic, corrupt, and incompetent, disconnected from the people. The people of Iran have rised, and they are not going to be quiet.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed
Thank you
this
very
conversation.
much. This was great.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.